everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited to jump into two-axis force plate fundamentals. As you get situated, I would love to direct you to the bottom of your Zoom window. At the bottom of the Zoom window, you will see what looks like a little chat bubble. That is the icon you can click on to access today's webinar chat. We will be taking questions today. We have extremely qualified experts in the room, so they can answer your questions. So if you're wondering anything at any point, please make sure you go ahead and drop that question in the chat. We only ask that when you drop it in the chat, you make sure to click that to section. Right now it might say to hosts and panelists. I want to make sure that when you send a question, you send it to everybody. We ask that for two reasons. One, knowledge sharing, and make sure that we are building community. Other people are probably wondering the same thing. It helps encourage other folks to ask the questions that they might be wondering. And two, as we answer your questions, we want to make sure it doesn't look like we are talking to ourselves. So it helps add context to what we are saying. To practice this, please navigate to the chat box and go ahead and let me know. Are you back in school already? Are you getting ready for school? Where are you at in the back to school timeline? So it looks like we've got a few people from New York, Indiana. Let's see. Oh, classes start Monday, David says. 4 days in. You got this, Stefan.
Mm.
They start in 2 weeks in New York. Let's see. Oh, Kristen says Cleveland, Ohio is back to school. Oh, classes start in Western Massachusetts on Tuesday. Good luck, Michael. Let's see. Back in school in Kansas. All right. Finishing second week of school. Wow. Yep. Wow, somebody's here from China. Thank you, Dennis. Staff return on Monday. Have a great back to school, Dennis. Start after Labor Day. Nice, Maria. Russia, Ohio started Tuesday. Very nice. Good to see you, Eric. Thanks for coming. Connecticut meetings start on Monday. Let's see, another person on their second week in Southern California. 4 days in, getting ready. Classes started 2 days ago. Semester starts September 3rd. Wow. Well, thank you all, no matter where you're at in getting ready for school or getting comfortable back into the swing of things, we are so grateful that you joined us today. As I said before, please keep dropping your questions in the chat there. I will be putting links and other helpful things, so keep an eye on that. Before we hop into the presentation itself, I have just a few housekeeping items. If we could go to the next slide. Beautiful. You will get a recording of today's webinar. It usually takes us about 3 to 5 business days to get it edited and uploaded. As soon as it's ready, we're going to put it on both our website and our YouTube channel, so you can always find any webinars we host on both of those places. As soon as it's ready, I'm also going to email it to you. So keep an eye on your inbox. In about a week, I'm going to make sure you get that recording. In that email, you're also going to get a link to our resources folder. In that folder, you can find today's presentation with clickable links, some experiment files, a certificate of attendance if you're using today's webinar for some professional development hours. I'm going to drop that link in the chat as soon as I stop talking, so keep an eye out for that. I really recommend following along if you want to be clicking those links and seeing what folks are up to. As I said before, we will be using today's chat to answer your questions. So please, if you're wondering anything, if you want to follow up on something, drop that in there. We'd be happy to either answer it in the moment or at the end of the presentation. If we happen to miss your question, we don't get to it, or you think of it later, reach out to us at support@vernier.com and we will get you the answer you're looking for. All that being said, I will pass you off to today's presenters. Make sure you stick around because we are giving away a Vernier gift certificate at the end of the webinar, so it'll be available to anyone who stays for the duration of the webinar. So stay tuned and you might win. All right, I'll pass it off now.
Thanks a lot, Dylan. So you're here for the two-axis force plate fundamentals. My name's Tom Smith with Vernier. With us today, we have Prasanna Acharya from Illinois College, excuse me, and John Melville from here at Vernier. I'll give both of them a chance to introduce themselves. Prasanna, you want to start us off?
Yeah. Okay. Hi. Good evening. Good afternoon, wherever you are from. My name is Prasanna. I'm a faculty member of Illinois College. I'm here basically teaching kinesiology classes like biomechanics, exercise physiology, and this semester I'm teaching intro to kinesiology, and I'm planning to use this force plate in that course along with my biomechanics course. So I'm excited to be here and share my knowledge and what I'm planning to do with this force plate.
Awesome. Thanks, Prasanna. John, you want to say hi?
Hi, my name is John Melville. I'm a former college professor. Um, I've been at Vernier for about 17 years, and I used to be the director of the biology department, but I also am really good at getting in trouble. So I like to play with spectrometers and then also pretend to be a physicist and play with biomechanics as well. So that's why I'm here, is because I like this stuff as well, and used to teach the basic components of biomechanics. I'll mostly be answering chat, but I will be here if you have any questions.
Thanks, John. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started here momentarily. We're switching things up a little bit to start off with biomechanics, and then we'll do a little bit with physics. I'll talk about a couple of ladder activities. But first, I want to spend a little bit of time just talking about the two-axis force plate and give you a little introduction to that. So Dylan has put a link into the chat for the shared folder resources. So take a look at those. A lot of good information there. Again, I'm going to give you an introduction to the two-axis force plate. Prasanna is going to take over then and talk about biomechanics investigations that he's working on. Then I'll come back on, talk about the static forces on a ladder and some classic physics activities you might do with the two-axis force plate. And then maybe if time allows, we'll talk a little bit about how integrating video with your data can be a great benefit. And actually, Prasanna is going to show you one approach to that. And then time allowing, I'll show you another approach at the end of the webinar, just before you win that $100 gift certificate. So we're going to be using Graphical Analysis Pro primarily. We're providing you a key that Dylan's going to drop in the chat for you as well. These keys are valid for Graphical Analysis Pro and video analysis until the 1st of September. So they're limited time duration, but it'll give you a chance to, if you don't have the pro version of graphical analysis or video analysis, you'll be able to access that and play around with it for a couple of weeks. And we'll be showing you how you can use that throughout the webinar. The two-axis force plate is really one of our single-axis force plates that measures this vertical force mounted on top of another device that is an accessory to our force plates. And it just measures in one dimension of kind of in the direction that this little man is walking on the label there. So a couple things to note about the force plate, which again is the top half of this structure, is that it has 4 different load cells, basically a load cell in each corner. And to determine that normal force or the vertical force on the force plate, it basically does a combination of those 4 load cells. You get the best reading when you're applying a force in the center of the force plate because of the way it adds those forces together. With the go direct force plate, when you connect the lateral force to the force plate with that short US or BTA cable, all of the data comes through the go direct force plate. So you'll get, and I'll show you in a moment here, you'll be able to select the channel to incorporate the lateral force into your data collection. This accessory, I'm going to jump ahead just briefly here. The accessory looks like this. So if you already have one of our force plates, you can buy the accessory and mount it on there. It works with both the Go Direct force plate and the standard force plate. And then it just attaches through these 4 embedded screws into the bottom of the force plate. And it has this single load cell right in the center. This H frame is really the tool that provides the force to be applied to the load cell. Let me go back here if I can figure out how to go back. And so that's what we're seeing down here. That's just mounted on there. We also sell it as a package, so you can just buy the 2-axis force plate, in which case they come assembled, ready to go, basically. Towards the end of the webinar, we're going to be talking about this kit. This is the Lateral experiment kit that basically allows you to use our track to do some classic physics experiments with a leaning ladder leaning against a wall. Has these nice rollers that provide a low friction contact with the wall, and a hook to be able to hang masses off the side of the track as well. Let me show you one more thing just to kind of illustrate this a little bit better. Let's see if I can.
Hey, Tom,
Yeah.
are older force plates, like analog ones, compatible?
So the force plates built before November 2023 that don't have this same form factor, they are not designed to be able to work with that. So it has to be a newer analog force plate or the Go Direct force plate, which have this same basic form factor. So there's a couple things I want to show you here. This is kind of a top view of, well, let me do it this way first. Let me go back to, I have a force plate connected to graphical analysis. And when you are connecting it, you get to this screen where you can identify your sensor channels. Again, I'm working with the Go Direct version. If I click on this, I can see all of these channels that are options for me. The force, the auxiliary voltage, XY balance, hang time, and jump height are all tied to the force plate itself. The lateral force is really only available or makes sense to use when you have that lateral force connected, but you can choose any or all of those channels. For a lot of our demonstrations, we're just going to be using those 2 forces. I think Prasanna is going to also use the X balance and Y balance channels at some point during the presentation. So I just want to kind of point out a couple of things relevant to that. And I'll shift over to this picture right now. So this shows the top of just the force plate and indicates where the USB and the label are on this on this side of the force plate. And then you have your 4 load cells connected there. For the balance channels, where it's basically looking at how balanced you are from left to right or from front to back, basically uses a vector analysis of your V1 plus V4. So these 2 vectors added together, and then subtracting a V2 from V and V3, the combination of these 2. So you have this vector minus that vector to give you your X axis balance. Similar thing with the Y balance. This is just with the force plate, regardless of whether you're using the lateral force or not. And some of the work that Prasanna did involved both the X and Y balance and the lateral force. So I just wanted to point that out up front. Let's see. I think with that explanation, I'm going to move forward and turn everything over to Prasanna. Prasanna, if you want to share your screen at this point, I'll stop sharing and you can take over.
Okay, let me try. Even though we have done this so many times in the last few years, it always feels like doing it for the first time. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, hello everyone, one more time. What I'm going to show you is like before we do anything, as I've told you all at my introduction, I teach biomechanics, and I'm trying to use or integrate this force plate to do some of the lab activities. And one of the simple lab activity would be to do a vertical jump. However, like previous one of the audience asked, they have the old Vernier force plate. Can we integrate this new system into that older devices? And I was able to do a vertical jump a lot more easily in that one, but this one makes my life even easier now. So in the next few slides, what I'm going to do is show you guys some of the what do you call activities that I'm planning to integrate or do it in my class. Let me, okay, make this screen smaller so that you guys can see what's happening over here. So let me mute this one. Well, it didn't work. Sorry about that. Okay. Let me stop sharing one more time and try. Okay. Reshare my screen. Are you able to see this one? Okay, so this is me in my office trying to do a horizontal jump. So as you can see, that's me trying to kind of jump off the force plate, not vertically, but I'm trying to step on to the force plate, and let me slow it down a little bit. And as you can see, I have stepped up on my force plate on the right hand side. And as I'm squatting down, you can see how forces are changing on this one over here. So using this activity, let's say, for example, let me pause. You can measure your vertical force and lateral force over here in the second one over here. And you can always measure, if you are interested, what are you doing in your X and Y direction or balance wise. You can always measure that one also, as Tom said it at the start of your when you are setting up your force plate. You can click those buttons and do the analysis automatically. So let me play this video one more time and see my forces, which is not very good compared to others. Some of you might be able to generate more. So that's one activity I'm trying to kind of integrate in my biomechanics. Another thing that you can do using this force plate is vertical jump over here, which is instead of going this way, now you'll be jumping directly, squatting down and jumping up and down. So as you can see over here, let me play it one more time. In the first bar over here, in the first row, you can see you have squatted down, jumped off, vertical force you are measuring. And again, in the second row, you are measuring X and Y balance. And in the third row, you can always measure your lateral balance. And what I'm thinking is, where are you going to apply these information or these forces is like when you are trying to measure your balance, when you are kind of doing some kind of a, if you are an athlete, your balance is very, very important for you. Now, another activity that I'm also thinking that I'd like to add is to measure your push-up forces. I'm not very good at push-up, but I'm trying my best to do a nice, easy to push-up over here. So as you can see, let me slow it down a little bit further and replay this one is. So the top one over here shows you the two forces, two vertical forces that you are going to generate coming from these two forces. Okay. And then the second row over here, or second line over here, you will be measuring your lateral forces that you are generating. If you are kind of going, as you are coming down, your wrist will be rotated, okay, rotated outward or outside. So you can see as I'm kind of straight up. Let me play this video. Same thing, I guess, it froze. I think it doesn't like to be froze too much. Let me reshare and play one more time. Is it showing, Tom? Yeah, okay. So as you can see over here, oh no, again. So, okay, I'm up straight now. As I'm coming down, as you can see, the X and Y or lateral forces are kind of going away, which is making sense because you are kind of rotating your wrist. Your elbows are now pointing outwards. As you are coming down, that's when you will have these X and Y or lateral forces over here going outside. Okay. So that's that. Do you guys have any question before I jump onto my other two activities? Anybody?
One question we did get was how robust is the force plate? Does it need to be recalibrated?
Okay.
So this force plate is actually really robustly designed. It stands up to, frankly, a lot more beating and abuse than the earlier model did. And calibration is possible, but typically just zeroing the sensor is adequate when you're starting data collection. If you're really concerned about high precision, I mean, you're going to get variation in the force plate, just standing stationary on it, of a couple of newtons, for example. So, it depends on, if you're really concerned about highly precise numbers, you would definitely want to calibrate it. It's a little tricky because you have to calibrate it dead center at whatever your weight is. So think about putting a metal washer on the center of the force plate and a significant amount of weight on it to do that calibration. Back over to you, Prasanna.
Okay, perfect. Good questions. And then I also tried to do walking activity using this force plate. Although I do have two force plate with me, but in this particular video on the right hand side, you can see I have only used one force plate. But my long-term goal would be to use two force plate on a particular using a box in around those force plate and making my students or whoever is my participants to walk over it, because that way I can generate or record forces that are being generated from both right as well as left foot. So as you can see over here on the right hand side, while going from left to right, I'm just stepping on top of the force plate, only using one foot. But my long-term goal is to have a second force right over there, so that I can track what's going on with my forces while I'm walking on top of it. Okay. And as you can see on the left-hand side, on the graphical analysis, the first row shows you the forces, the vertical forces, and the second row shows you the lateral forces as you kind of land your foot, okay, and you flat foot and then push up. You can see that U, or let's say some kind of S sign is generated in this second row. And if you're interested upon X and Y balance also during your walking, you can always have that third row also you can generate. Okay, so let me come out of this one. And now the next two videos that I'm going to show you guys.
Prasanna, let me interrupt you for a quick second.
Sure.
There was a question about which of these activities can be done with a single force plate versus the force and lateral, or maybe, Kevin, maybe I'm misinterpreting your question. Were you referring to one force plate or the force plate without the lateral force? If you can throw that question, the answer to that back in chat, we'll get an answer for you.
Am I good to go? And
Yeah, why don't you go ahead for now?
okay, perfect.
They answered one force plate. You are correct.
Okay.
They only have one force plate.
So I think what I would, so let me pause this one. As you can see, I've shown you two to three different activities I have used most of this time, just except for a force plate. During push-up, I've mostly used only one force plate. So depending upon your activity, I think one force plate would be good. But if you are trying to kind of, let's say, do some kind of a push up, or you want to compare with your right foot versus left foot during walking, then maybe you might have to create some kind of a platform. So does that answer your question, Tom? If you have any other suggestion, feel free to add on
No, I
that.
think that's good. That there's a lot of options with the single force plate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as you can, let me share my screen one more time. So this one, let's say, for example, with one force plate, what I'm doing over here is just stepping on top of it, okay, and not moving at all, trying to maintain my balance. And you can see my X and Y balance pretty steady over here. And in a few seconds later or milliseconds later, you can see I'm kind of going forward and backward. You can see I'm like slowly pushing or trying to kind of push forward and backward, forward, and backward. So you can see with that rocking movement forward and backward, you can see the changes that is taking place on X and Y balance also. So if you are interested in measuring how older people move back and forward, like say, for example, when we age, our proprioceptors in our feet, they are kind of getting weaker and slower, and we are not able to kind of maintain our balance. So you can kind of use your force plate, this force plate, to measure your X and Y balance and get an idea what's going on with this particular group of people. Okay, so that's that. And there is one more activity that I can suggest. Let me stop sharing it again. And then, okay, reshare it. Now, for this one, again, what you are seeing me doing is sitting and standing up. So they call it as sit to stand activity, let me slow it down slowly. So as you can see on the right-hand side, have a force plate underneath my feet over here. And then let's say, for example, right over here, I'm sitting on the chair and my goal is to stand up, exerting force onto my, let's say, for example, let's restart the video. So as you can see again on the right-hand side, both feet are onto the force plate. Seems like it doesn't like this way. Let me reshare it one more time. Sorry, guys. So let's start again over here on the right side, both feet on the force plate, and I'm pushing up to stand up without any support or anything like that. And when I'm doing that, you can see how my X and Y balances are changing. Along with that, you can also see on the top row how my forces, especially the vertical forces, are changing. You can see some kind of lateral forces over here, even though it looks like the yellow pink line over here looks pretty flat. But to be honest, if I zoom in a little bit, you can see some kind of lateral forces generated when I'm kind of sitting and standing up over here. So those are my suggested or activities that you can do using these force plate, one or two, whatever works for you guys.
So Prasanna, I'm curious, of those activities, which ones do you use with your class versus which ones do you use for your research? Which I guess I'm most curious about what your interests are on the research end of your work.
Okay, so what I'm thinking is for my class, I'm thinking, you know how students get competitive about the push-up and the weightlifting and all that thing. So one of the activity that I'm thinking is like, okay, let's try to do a push-up. How many number of reps or how many push-ups you can do it, and what is the maximum force that you can generate as you are starting versus as you are ending up. So the comparison between boys and girls, between males, between females. So that activity, we can do it in the lab for my biomechanics class or my intro to kinesiology class. Another activity that I have been doing it with my older Vernier force plate is just straight vertical jump. Now, I have two force plates over here, so I would be interested in using both force plate and making them jump on directly up vertically and see how much forces they are generating. And again, this can be compared between male and female, boys between boys, girls between girls, or we can always compare between right and left legs also, because sometimes we kind of, maybe I'm thinking like we push or use one of our feet more than other feet to jump up for something like that. Talking about my research, what I'm thinking is I'm thinking of using it for center of pressure, which I didn't show it to you guys over here, but my later on plan is to use this X and Y balance information and use it along with the center of pressure to measure how much body is moving forward. Like in biomechanics, we call it as a sway over here, body sway or so. So among older person, among concussed people, how much forward and backward movement are there happening with these people, or lateral movement is happening. So these would be some of the research questions that I would be interested upon using these force plate.
Hey, Prasanna,
Yep.
I have a couple of questions. Someone asked, like, would the readings be different if they were wearing shoes? Like, so barefoot versus wearing shoes, that was a question. Then another one would be like, would there be an interesting difference if you were using a cane or a walker?
I would say with shoes and without shoes, I still think there would be somewhat difference because there are a lot of researches that you can currently find forces generated between flat foot versus what do you call well-cushioned shoes versus high-heel shoes. So I would like to say there would be differences. Maybe for my easiness, I took off my shoes, and then just because I'm a flat-footed person, I don't want to jump on a force plate and twist my ankle. So that's the reason why I took off my shoes. About walker versus cane, I have no idea, and it would be interesting to kind of a test. Again, I've been telling this to Tom and John, is like my long-term goal is to build a platform where people can walk on top of it, and they can walk as a with walker or cane or something like that. So that would be interesting to see how forces are changing across different assistive devices.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Prasanna. Prasanna's going to stick around, so feel free to drop more questions in the chat. I'm going to shift gears a little bit and take us back into the physics room. So hang on, if you will. There we go. Now you should be seeing a picture of one of our tracks leaning against a wall. And here's our force plate on the ground. And there's this little bracket that was part of that ladder experiment kit that I mentioned earlier. And you'll notice up here on the top of the track, there are those two small ball bearings or bearings. They're just small wheels that just keep the track just off of the wall, but they're great low friction bearings. So basically you only have that normal force pushing out vertically from the wall, acting at the wall. And, you know, one of the questions I like to pose to my students when I was in the classroom in a situation like this is, you know, what forces are acting at the top of the, thinking of this as a model of a ladder. What is that? What are the forces acting there? And if they have a roller like that, it's pretty common to think of that as just the vertical forces, not any horizontal friction forces. So you could even test that out with this device. So we have a couple of activities that we're actually sharing in the shared files there that take advantage of this particular setup. One of which is just having the track on the force plate. Again, trying you zero it before you get started. I zero it without the track on there, and then move the track away from the wall in steady increments. And this is one of the few times in my physics classroom that I would use the advance with entry tool in graphical analysis. So let me just show you some data that I've collected from this particular activity. If I can figure out how to make that smaller, I'll pull up graphical analysis and spread that out a bit. And then we can see, again, this is data collected 10 centimeters at a time, moving the force plate out from the wall, and just having that ladder lean over a little bit more. The top set of data here is the normal force, if you will, the vertical force. I think I got my verticals and horizontals mixed up earlier. Sorry about that. The vertical force, the up and down force on the force plate. And then the lateral force is this teal set of data points. And you can see that that vertical force does not change too much at all. It just kind of varies around maybe a Newton of change that you would expect in just the variation of the sensor. And then the lateral force is actually changing quite a bit as you move it out. So that may be surprising to students, maybe not that the lateral force increases, but that the the normal force, the vertical force does not change as that angle increases or decreases. So I'll go back to that camera view for a second. And for the next activity, we use this small eye bolt, and we hang a mass off of it, and we start down at the bottom and then go up the force or up the track every 10 centimeters, and just look at how the torque acting on that ladder from the masses moving up the ladder affect the forces on the force plate. And again, we're not changing the weight that's acting in the normal, so we'd expect that to be fairly constant. But it'll be interesting to see how that lateral force changes as that mass is moved up the side of the track, essentially modeling somebody climbing a ladder. It's a good opportunity to just think about ladder safety and what's why things are more stable when you're down on the ground versus up on the ladder. So I'll take a look at that data collected here. Open that up. And ladder climb, there we go. So again, in this case, you'll notice that the lateral force does increase, but not all that much. We're just looking at a difference between, 5.5 and 9 newtons as you move that weight up the track there. And again, my normal force, my vertical force stays pretty constant throughout that, as you would expect, just because there's no friction force to be considered as you're just leaning it against the wall. I went out to 100 centimeters, so quite a ways from the bottom to the top, just about, of that track. And again, the normal force stays pretty constant.
Hey, Tom,
Yeah,
someone asked, how did that you can calculate those same values? How do the calculated ones compare with those measured by the force plate?
actually really good. So you can take a look at some of the forces and some of the torques, and those values should come out really close to each other. It is critical to make sure that you zero your sensors before you get started, because that can, if they're not zeroed to begin with, that can create quite an offset for your calculated values. So that'd be my one suggestion for that. The next thing I wanted to show you is just how you can incorporate video in graphical analysis. This is, again, a pro feature of graphical analysis that can be similar to what Prasanna was showing us in his presentation. So let me just go ahead and open up a file that has video synchronized with that. That's the 2D jump synchronized. And I can go ahead and expand that so you can see it. Now, so I took video at the same time that I was taking data. So that's a critical point of this. And when you you would collect your data, and then in graphical analysis, you would click on video and be able to import a video. MP4 and MOV formats are compatible. You want to make sure your video is trimmed as much as possible so that you're not trying to import a huge amount of data. And if you're using an iPhone, we always recommend using the most compatible setting in your camera settings. So I've imported the video. I can go to this enable replay button, and this is where I would go to synchronize my data. So I've already done this, but just know that I played my data, and I figured out that there was a time that would make sense for me to synchronize the data with some event that was happening in the video. Happens to be almost 2 seconds into my data collection and almost 4 seconds into my video collection. So I would start my video and then start my data collection and then start this. So I'll click that out now. And I have this playing at half speed just to kind of show you, you can speed it up or slow it down depending on what you're trying to accomplish. I always like to joke that physics teachers like to slow things down and biologists like to speed it up. So you can see my data coming in here now, and I'm jumping off, and I must have been on the moon or something because that was really like slow motion there. You'll notice that I didn't do what I told you to do, which is to zero my sensors. So it started off with an offset on one of my sensors. So that's how you would synchronize the data with the video, just from that your initial data collection, identify that timestamp where your data matches up with something in the video. Happened to be when I first put a foot on the force plate. And again, this is using the 2-axis force plate. This is just a step up. You can kind of get an idea for, okay, there's about how much I weigh if I stand stationary there for a little bit. And then I have this impulse that launches me off there. So you could do a little impulse momentum evaluation of what it takes to get me off the force plate. So that's one aspect of using video with this. The other thing that I wanted to experiment with, if I can look at what I'm doing here. There we go. I also did this with video analysis. I took this same video and I ran it through our video analysis app, and I can show you basically standing on it and jumping off there. I had to mark kind of my center of mass through that whole launch there, but I get this set of data. And once again, I can go to this replay button and I can make sure I'm rewound all the way. And then you can see me again, half speed launching off of that. So you can get my motion data from video analysis while you've already looked at the force plate data from graphical analysis. And at the risk of trying to do too much, I'm gonna grab both of these here side by side and see what kind of trouble I can get into trying to run these at the same time. You know, Persona used a piece of software that let him embed a video next to data collected, and you could do the same thing with both of these running at the same time, basically. Now, because, let me think about this for a second. This is, let's bring that all the way back to the beginning, this all the way back. I'm going to start this one first, and then I'll start this one about the time I step on the force plate over there. So you can kind of see these things working in tandem. Might be some additional analysis you could make there if you wanted to look closely at that impulse momentum data and think about this person as a projectile. There's a lot of different ways you could go with this. I think I'm going to pause there, see if there's any more questions out there, and then we're a little bit over time, but we can wrap it up pretty quick here.
Yeah, I was just going to say I dropped in 2 links to 2 books for analyzing motion in sports and other things that you can use if you want to add in some video analysis. those are some great activities in there. Of course, since Tom and I worked on it, they're great. So,
Yeah,
but anyway,
of course.
but yeah, if you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to ask them in chat, and we can take this last couple of minutes to answer those. Or, oh yeah, how much do the pro versions of the graphing and video analysis cost?
You know off the top of your head, John?
No, but what I can do is let's go ahead and ask another question. I do know that you can get them in 1, 3, and 5 year site licenses. So it depends. I also know that there's no per seat cost. So if you're used to a per seat cost, we don't do that. It's for your entire school. But I'll drop those links in here so that you can look at how much they are for the 1, 3, and 5 year. I'll do both of that.
Yeah. Dylan, if you're there, are you ready to hold the drawing for the magic winner?
Absolutely, yes. So, as our fantastic presenters have been sharing about the 2-axis force plate, I went ahead and entered everyone's names into a random name selector, and the winner of today's giveaway of a $100 gift certificate to Vernier is Jonathan H. So, congratulations, Jonathan. I'm going to email you to get some info to send that gift certificate your way. So keep an eye out for an email from someone at vernier.com. If you don't see it in about 10 minutes, check your spam. And congratulations.
Yeah. And there is a special bundle price that I'll drop too.
Great. Well, thank you all for showing up. Appreciate your attention as we get ready to kick off your school years, and we wish you luck for the beginning of school, whether it's already happened or it's coming up soon. So.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Have a great rest of your night.